to IT Nation Wise Up, the podcast that skips the sales pitch and provides real actionable insights for your business. I'm Matt Topper.
Joined with Vicki Bruns. And hey, if you're listening to this episode, we invite you, we implore you, make sure that you are subscribing to all of the great stuff that comes out of the IT Nation Wise Up podcast, because you don't want to miss it, including this episode. So yeah, I think we have a really special guest on today, Matt. Who are we talking to?
We do have a very special guest today. We have Tim Weber, VP of Channel Growth at Cyber74. Tim, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks. It's good to see you all again. Thanks, Vicki.
Yeah. Good to see you. So, Tim, we ran into each other briefly at IT Nation last week, very briefly for about 10 seconds. That's why you didn't get sick, and Vicki did because she spent more time with me. So, Tim, for anyone who might not know you, just can you tell us who you are, what you do,
Sure.
A little background?
Yeah, so I work for Cyber74. We're a national managed security services provider under the New Charter Technologies umbrella. So we work with companies, essentially coast to coast, and partnering either with New Charter MSPs or MSPs actually outside of the New Charter platform. We're bringing advanced cybersecurity services, assessment services, compliance, pen testing, and things like that to organizations of all shapes and sizes. For me personally, I've been in this space. I'm now at a point where I call it 25 plus years, as opposed to continuing to increment the number of years. Thank you, Natalie Suarez, for that pro tip. And I spend a lot of time doing speaking. So, a big portion of my role is helping people kind of connect the dots from a security standpoint. It's for as much as we've educated people in the last 5 to 10 years, there's still so many people that don't necessarily know where to start, don't know what to do, and things like that. So, I help kind of bridge the gap, talk about the topics that are important to them, enlighten them where I can, and hopefully at least share a little bit of wisdom and knowledge. I've had to sit across the table from people and give them some pretty bad news on security events, and anything we can do to help people avoid that is, that's one of my chief goals. So. And
who are the people that you're usually talking to? Who's your audience?
It really can be anybody. So, so through New Charter, I've done a series of roadshow events where we've gone to all of the New Charter platform companies. We'll talk to industry trade associations. We'll do webinars. I've been fortunate enough to speak at IT Nation Connect as well as Secure. I had an opportunity last year to go to London with the ConnectWise team and do an event there. So yeah, it's honestly anybody that'll listen to me. And even if they don't want to listen to me, I'm still going to talk because that's just kind of how I roll. And anybody that's nosing me, that's watching this goes, yeah, that's true. So,
so Tim, we first met we might have met each other before at some conference or something, who knows? But we first did work together at an event last year. Yep. And I'm using that because we're going to segue into today's topic, which is about events and planning events or cybersecurity events for MSPs that you might have clients at, that you might have prospects at. So let's just start with that. If I'm an MSP and I want to throw an event, or I think it would be fun to have clients or have prospects come do something, how do you get started? That's an intentionally vague, open-ended question, because all I know is I want to have an event. What next?
Yeah, and honestly, I'm going to start with a word that's going to probably surprise you both, which is courage. That you have to take the leap. You have to do it, and you also have to understand that, much like any time you do something new, the first iteration might not be great, but you have to stick with it. So, I know through my partnership with the ConnectWise team and the ConnectWise Partner Program marketing folks that ConnectWise has done the research and can show that the highest ROI from marketing dollars is doing events. And for me personally, I've seen that. So, I spent north of 100 days on the road back in 2023 doing events with, folks like Natalie and Jim from ConnectWise. And, there's a couple things that really go into it. One is you have to know what are you trying to accomplish? And with that, don't overthink it. What do you want to talk about? What's going to resonate with your audience? what are the things that you think they should know? Because like I've worked with some places and I've done some events where it's a very specific vertical, say healthcare. I'm going to speak to that. I also did 2 years ago I did a conference for municipalities and counties in in Missouri. So you can tailor it. But a lot of time, people just need to understand what's the current world look like? What type of landscape are we in? And what my goal always with these events is to try and help make it real for people. We're unfortunate that events are happening, but fortunate enough that still some of these cybersecurity events make the mainstream news. The problem is that a lot of times they're so big, they're so massive that people are like, well, that only happens to the big companies, and it's not relevant. So for me, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll try to take the stories that I've collected, either events that we've been involved in, events that were maybe adjacent to, or just things that I know from an industry standpoint, and try and help tell those stories. Because when you can, instead of talking about an Equifax or a Colonial Pipeline breach, when I can talk about here was the impact on a 40-person law firm, that's a kind of thing that's actually going to get people's attention, and making it
Mhm.
real and making it tangible. Because while we've come an infinitely far way, there's still folks out there that think this isn't going to happen to them. And there's the people that have
Yeah.
been attacked, there's the people that haven't been attacked, but will at some point. And there's the people who've been attacked and actually have no idea. You fall into one of those three buckets. But the common theme is that you will be attacked and you will be compromised at some point. So you have to start off with that desire to do it and figure out what's your target audience, what's your target message, and then everything goes from there. Things like venues. In my experience, the local folks know what's best. What's going to be the biggest draw? The two common themes I've always seen in events is either alcohol related or top golf like. I mean, three-quarters of the events last year that we did were everything from breweries, wineries. Probably one of my favorites, a bourbon tasting room in Paducah, Kentucky, to
Mhm.
Top Golfs. And with Top Golfs and some of these things, I had one operating company that got 35 people out on a 3 o'clock at a Monday afternoon, which was just like, no aspect of that I thought would actually happen. I mean, 3 o'clock on a Monday is not really a prime spot for doing an event. But the power of events is something that it's just enormous. Getting in front of your clients, breaking bread, having a drink, having some fun, not making it a very heavy sales pitch. There's so much to be gained because you become human to them. And one of the things I've seen at some of the most successful events is when these folks bring in, some of the other folks from their team, maybe their support people, customer service and stuff like that,
So you're
that
getting the
only
real-time
interact with the.
connections.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That you make people real, and you're having a non-transactional conversation. Because let's be honest, most of the time we're talking to clients because something's broke,
Mhm.
something's about to break, or they need to purchase something, or we want to sell them something. Like there's or we're doing a QBR or something like that. So the more you can just have those informal conversations, that's worth its weight in gold. So.
So fantastic point. So you don't think of the event as an opportunity to close deals or really sell at all. It's just to spend some face time with clients or prospects, right? Do you intentionally not try and sell? Do
Um,
you, do you avoid the topic altogether?
No, no. So I try not to be overt about it. I'm not trying to make it make it an infomercial, but I am trying to educate. And 100% we're trying to get work from it. That's not when I do events, it's primarily around educating, passing along knowledge, and whatever tidbits I can. But let's be honest, the end result is to help to drive revenue. But if you can do it in a way where that almost becomes a byproduct, people feel better about it. I don't go into these events talking about, the latest in MDR or SIM technology. I talk about here's what happens, and then inevitably somebody will ask me, even if I'm not ready to, if I don't have it kind of canned. Well, what are the things that I can do to help myself? And a lot of times I equate it to, I'm kind of sprinkling seeds around, and sometimes those seeds take root immediately, and sometimes it's 2 years or 3 years. and somebody be like, hey, I remember when you spoke at something and you talked about this. We're now ready to, to discuss that. So I think that you have to be careful as an MSP in that it's okay to sell, but you have to be stealthy, I
Genuine,
guess is
maybe
gen
genuine about it.
yeah,
Genuine. That's
genuine. Yeah,
perfect.
genuine. That's a great word for a Friday afternoon. I think that's what it's about because people can see through. If you're just doing an ad, you're going to tune people out, and you'll have not good track record of getting people to come back to events. When
Hmm.
you're sincere and you're really trying to help educate, kind of a go-giver mentality type thing, um, that pays off in spades. So.
Can we talk a little bit about what do you do after the event? My marketing brain is starting to activate here, and I'm thinking of, okay, you're at these events, you're creating these genuine connections
Yep.
within the community, but how do you keep that going after everybody goes home?
Yeah, so it starts with a simple thank you. Thanks for coming out to the event. Hopefully you've taken some notes. That's probably one of the biggest things that I, sometimes have struggled with, which is, I have all these conversations, and then I'm like, somebody talked to me about a pen test. I don't remember who it was. So, I consciously either right as the event ends or very, very shortly thereafter, just make notes of who was asking me, on what. Um, but again, going back to your term genuine, if you have a follow-up conversation and you just say, hey, you express some interest either to our presenter or to, we got talking about, some type of testing or some type of service. Yeah, I wanted to see if you wanted more information on that, or if we should set up a further call on it. The biggest thing is just doing the follow-up. And again, you start by saying thank you. You can share share some of the content. A lot of times that's a good way to have another follow-up is,
Yeah.
oh, here's a copy of the slides. In some events I see there'll be I used to see more defined call to actions around, oh, we'll do a free assessment or things like that. I actually don't see that as much anymore, which is good because I'm not a huge free. We could actually do a whole event on my feelings towards free assessments. Yeah, it gives you an opening to keep the dialogue going, and I actually think that is the key, which is you keep the dialogue going, and then you put those type of notes into most MSPs I know are doing some form of quarterly business reviews. Get that in there because even if they're not ready now, maybe 2 cycles down the road or something's going to happen, or you bring it up and they're like, oh wait, our board was just asking if we were doing X, Y, or Z. Now you can start to connect what you've taught them with some type of need. I'm a huge believer in the power of, I forget the marketing or psychological term for it, when you learn about something and then you start seeing opportunities for it everywhere. It is inevitable that I will meet with a prospective vendor on something, not thinking that there's any fit for it in our space, and then within 2 weeks I spot one or two opportunities. I'm like, oh wait, I know where that fits here. Is it relevance? I can't remember the right term for it, but there's some marketing term for it.
So you have your event, right? You have your venue, some kind of alcohol related thing. Top Golf. You don't want to see me at Top Golf. Some of you, Vicky might have.
I
It's
have
not
seen you at
not good.
Top Golf.
It's
Yeah.
rough.
You're a better
Top
runner
Golf.
than you are a golfer.
Yeah, I'm good at sports, not that one.
Top Golf's forgiving though, which is good because I'm not really a golfer either. So.
It's not that forgiving.
Ah.
So what do you do at the event, right? At the one we did, we went through a simulated breach incident response, but there are a lot of things you can do, right? Anything from a presentation all the way up to something interactive. How do you think about what you should have you and your guests and attendees do when you get there?
So one of the things, again, part of it is knowing your audience and what's going to be most relevant to them. Some audiences are more serious. I'm thinking some of the professional services like legal and accounting and things like that, and
Mhm.
maybe a little less fun motivated than other industries. No offense to any accountants or lawyers on the call. But what I've found is, again, golf skills notwithstanding, doing a presentation and then doing something social where you have downtime and you can have spontaneous conversations is huge. So, it's interesting. The first of my roadshow events last year was in Denver with the Greystone team, also known as the first time I've ever done a security presentation in an axe throwing and go-kart facility. Um,
Mm.
and what I found
Hopefully
was
it wasn't doing both at the same time.
that would have been I would have paid extra for that.
That would have
Um,
been interesting. I would have paid
that'd
extra
be
to watch that.
absolutely. Not sure how the insurance would work. But what I found is like, in doing the axe throwing in anything where you're taking turns. So, axe throwing, golf, bowling, you know, you have natural downtime, but you're together with people that, you just have random conversations. And again, maybe it was work related, maybe it wasn't. You're talking about a hobby. I'm very much that connector type where I like to learn as much about people as I can, and then pivot
Mhm.
conversations to finding some type of common ground. So I think that if you say you've got a set time window for an event, not occupying it entirely with the presentation is
Yes.
good. Building in some social time, for lack of a better
Camaraderie,
term.
yeah, building.
Yeah.
Tim, you actually hit on an interesting point. I was talking to actually a legitimate psychiatrist who's a cousin of mine today on a family matter. It wasn't anything related to psychiatry, but she told me that when you are doing something with your hands, like let's say you're doing art or whatever, and you're having a conversation with somebody, it actually allows people to put their guard down more easily, so that way they'll actually speak more openly with you about whatever you're talking about. And I think
Yeah.
that that's a really interesting point, especially when it comes to events, that if you're getting people to do other things, then you're hopefully unlocking other opportunities to have more authentic connections.
Well, you start talking with people as opposed to at people, is
Mhm.
probably the biggest thing. And those have been some of my most fascinating conversations. That and Uber drivers. I love talking to Uber drivers. Oh my God. I've
They're great.
learned so much over the years from Uber drivers. Um, that yeah, I'm glad there's a psychological basis for that, because
Yeah.
but a lot of times I see people doing other things as part of the events because that's how you get people to events. I mean, one of the challenges I've seen in the last couple of years is that there is absolutely 100% of cybersecurity fatigue from most of the business community. They just don't want to hear about it anymore. And and you got to make it interesting. So, if what it takes to get somebody to come to an event is doing it at a winery or a bourbon tasting room or a brewery or a Top Golf, then that's what you got to do. But sometimes you don't even need that. One of our most successful events, I loved this last year. We had most of our new charter partners sign on to do events, and I had a couple folks that were never done events before, and they were scared of it. And one of them, was one of the last ones we did an event actually right after Thanksgiving, and they pulled the biggest crowd of anyone that we had. 35 attendees that day, and they had so much fun with it. They thought it was so valuable that, I'm going back to Northern Louisiana, in 2 weeks to do an event again for them. So, that ability to get in front of people, and actually I missed one thing before, is getting clients to talk to each other is
Oh
amazing.
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite stories is the MSP I came from before we started Cyber 74, which Adnet Technologies up here in Connecticut. For a long time, every year we did a chili cook-off. And initially it started as we tried to teach some people some stuff and have some stations, and it ended up just that was one year. And after that, it all became about chili and socialization and beer and stuff like that. And there was a story one year of one of our clients, had gone to the gym after she worked that day. She's a law firm. And she's, talking to the next person on the treadmill, and forget how it came up. She's like, "Oh, I can't stay that long. I got to go home, get changed, and I'm going to a chili cook-off tonight." And the person goes, "For AdNet?" And these two people were essentially in the same space. They were both clients of ours
So
that
funny.
they had no idea. And they both ended up at our event that night. And by the way, chili cook-offs are amazing
Um,
events.
let me ask. Do you put chocolate in your chili?
So I do like sweeter foods. I am not a hot chili person, so like I used to when we would do the voting on the chilies, I would vote on the hottest chili based off of other people's facial reactions. Um, a little bit of sweet's okay, but you got to be careful. So, so yeah, I
Wait,
will, yeah,
chocolate?
It's a
Really?
yeah,
thing. It's a
yeah, absolutely
thing.
the thing.
Okay.
I learned so much about chili. I mean, we had one year one woman who did like a Cincinnati chili where I'm like, why do you have spaghetti at your table? She's like, that's the thing, the skyline chili. I said, okay. That's where I also developed my affinity for chicken chili. I almost like that probably better than regular chili at this point. So
Huh.
Hmm. All right. Have to
That is
try that.
cool.
yeah,
I love chili too. My
yeah,
husband makes great chili. I make great chili, but he's the one who like puts in, all of
that's
the
awesome.
accoutrements.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah. Here's another question for you, Tim.
sure.
When you're building out events, are you creating an event calendar at the beginning of the year? Like, how are you actually maybe standardizing your approach to events?
So I'm not, but usually others are. So one of the things I'm a huge fan of is reusing content. Um, and there's two reasons for that. One is whether you call it efficiency or you call it laziness. Um, you can kind of pick which side of the coin. Um, but the real reason, and I was actually just talking with somebody about that upcoming event I'm doing is you do an event, if you do a talk track and a presentation enough times, you get really, really good at it, and
Hmm.
you can continue to mix it up. I look at my esteemed colleague, Mr. Peter Melby, and how many years has he been doing Boss or Babysitter?
Oh,
You know,
a
and
long
it is
time.
still as relevant now as it was when he first started doing it
And
because
you
the
know
core of
what?
it stays the same and he keeps adding to it.
That was one of the most attended sessions, breakout sessions at IT Nation Connect a few weeks ago.
Always is. Always is, and it's great, and I can tell you, for those of you who don't know Peter directly, that's him. That is, we talk about being genuine. There's nobody more genuine in this space than him, and it's really, really well done. I've been fortunate that, I've been able to kinda, control a lot of the aspects of the presentations, and I like to talk about some of these things because then I can kinda add in real stories. So, like, for example, we just had a cybersecurity event up here in the Northeast for one of the major grocery store chains. Stop and Shop and their parent company and stuff like that. I can kind of modularize and add those pieces to the different speaking tracks that I do at each one of these presentations and kind of keep it current and fresh. But it's a lot of times you have kind of core elements that aren't going to change, that stay the same, but you bring in different stories that back it up. Or obviously now I spend a fair amount of time talking about AI related topics and things like that, and that seems to get people's attention. So
Okay, so you have your venue, you
yep.
have a topic and or maybe an activity or something that you're doing with the audience interactively. How do you get people butts in seats? How do you start getting people to want to come to this?
So it's an interesting dynamic because you have to give people a heads up and start with it, but there's a sweet spot. If you do it too early, people don't sign up because of the fact that it's too far out. But if you wait too late, um, then they're already obligated for things. So it seems like that 4 to 6 weeks prior to event is probably the sweet spot. I know some folks will do like save the date. Hey, we're having an event, in
Mm.
October type thing. October being Cybersecurity Awareness Month is kind of a busy month for some of us. I'm sure you were tapped for a number of things. Um, but then it's dialing for dollars. It's reaching out. It is the partners that I've seen be most successful are the ones that don't just hope that people are going to show up, but put a concerted effort to it.
Hmm.
And that could be personalized emails. I think the single most effective thing though is calling people,
Mhm.
and saying, "Hey, we're doing this," because much like we can be genuine in how we're presenting, they can be genuine in saying, hey, these are the kind of things that we're going to be talking about that we think might be useful to you, type thing. So, that typically is, a lot of those phone calls need to be about a week or so, or less out. So then this way it kind of serves as a reinforce because, I'm sure you guys both run into this where you sign up for something, that's a couple months out and then you forget about it. And you're like, oh, darn, that's next week type thing. So,
No, it never
Yeah.
staying,
happens.
Well,
yeah.
you know what I used to do when I was in banking? I would go around to all of the businesses that I invited to our
Mhm.
events at the branch, and then I would pop in and maybe bring something and just
Yep.
say, "Hey, I'm going to see you guys next week, right? We're going to have a lot of fun." But it was like that nice little personal touch that they weren't
Well,
expecting.
you need that personal touch, and I love how you phrase it, which is, "I'm gonna see you next week, right?" Not, "Are you still gonna be able to come?"
Yeah.
You play a little bit of that psychology game, which is, if somebody really can't come, then, that's helpful to know from a head count standpoint and things like that, but, if you almost create this weird obligation, and I think go back to your psychiatrist family member type thing, there's probably something that defines that. But once somebody said yes, to your face, either physically or virtually in a phone call, um, that's a pretty good hook. I mean, I've seen, I did an event for an operating company in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I typically would see 50 to 75% attendance rates, and I think honestly, I think anything over 50 is great. 50 is always what I'm hoping for. They had 33 or 34 people signed up, and 32 of them showed up.
Oh, that's
And I was just
amazing.
Wow.
Wow.
like, "What's in the water up here?" So, but again, it's their client base, and part of that is, again, we talk about the repetition. They've done events before, and they've delivered a value.
Mhm.
We go back to what we talked about earlier, Matt, which is, are you selling?
Hmm.
If you're not directly selling, if you're educating and sharing insights and sharing knowledge, that's what people want. Nobody's going to want to come and have it be like a timeshare presentation type thing. They're coming to learn. Maybe they're coming to learn. So, maybe they're coming to socialize or free booze or free round of golf or things like that or the swag. Um, but if you make the event valuable to them, then that's going to be the hook. And I've seen some where I've got one partner in Texas that does. They're in West Texas, three cities. They do a 3-day security road show, and I was part of that for the first time this year. And that thing's got a momentum of its own, where they market it, but people find the event so valuable that people are asking them, "So when's the next one?" Type thing. And I
Wow.
used to
That's a
see
good
that with our
sign.
chili. Yeah, and I used to see that with our chili cook-off, which was is people be like, "Okay, that'll be what, October, November."
Mhm.
These things get it's a flywheel effect or a snowball
A
rolling
network
down the hill type
effect.
thing.
Flywheel
Network
effect.
effect. Yeah. Okay. So,
Well,
um,
I was gonna say that like you're probably even you're creating connections across other small businesses in the area too that have the potential to foster new business relationships from those connections at your events.
potentially,
So completely
yeah,
unintentional, but something that, can also happen
absolutely.
too. And
Well, the
yeah.
other thing that's really cool is I see some folks that will get hung up on it's got to be all prospects, and obviously having prospects there is good, but I tell people to not get hung up on that because showing thanks to your clients, interacting with them, being social with them goes a long, long way. And if your prospects start hanging out with your clients,
Hmm.
oh my God, there is no better salesperson for you than a happy customer. And sometimes, I've even seen people go so far as to steering people to sitting, being cognizant of where they're sitting and what clients are sitting with and, putting someone together with somebody else. There's a lot of kind of subtle tricks that you can do that make a huge impact. So
So if you're not overtly selling, how do you measure the success of an event? Like, is there a KPI that you see used? Is it, you look 6 months down the line to see which of these prospects closed? Like, what are you looking for to see if this was good or not?
So my background is I have an accounting degree, passed the CPA exam, and I was an engineer for 25 years. And one of the hardest things I had to learn was the understanding that you can't always connect marketing event or activity with closed sale. It is not it's not like engineering where I did this, so I should get that result, right?
Not deterministic.
Um, I would like it that way, and I think all the marketing types would too, but that's not the way it works. So certainly being able to measure ROI from the event and tracking follow-on sales, but that's going to be potentially a year, 18 months worth of tracking to really know. Certainly is one thing, but I know one of my partner companies I was talking with actually they zoomed out further, which was is they made a concerted, conscious effort to start doing events, and rather than looking at what could they connect to events, they looked at their net growth, which was new logos, revenue growth, and things like that. And they can absolutely see that when they started getting out more in front of people,
It was
that
growing
business
more.
started taking off. And
Mhm.
it's weird because it'll go like this, and then it'll go like that, and then this, and it zigzags, and on occasion, you get some wins. So I did multiple trips in October. I already landed one deal from one. I got a lead from another, and things like that. So there's certainly some things that I could tie together. But I think to answer your specific question, Matt, you can look for an ROI from events, but you have to take probably more of a long view on it, which is
Yeah.
what is the net impact, on our business. Some ways you can also track it is if you're trying to get into something new, maybe you see growth in a specific, area. If you're just maybe getting a little bit more into cybersecurity, or you're trying to crack a new vertical or things like that.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you said it. If we pull out a single phrase in that answer, which is tracking the ROI of events as a whole, right? As opposed to a single event, right? Ever since you started doing this, I saw numbers go up. I saw more deals
Yeah.
close. But
Um,
it sounds like what you're saying is it's really hard unless somebody walks up to you the next day looking to close a deal to really
It,
figure
it's
out if it
as
had
the
an impact.
marketing person, can I step in here for a second?
absolutely.
I think it's the events and it's the measurable outreach that you've done. And so if you can aggregate those outreach points, this, I mean, what do they say? Like, how many touch points do you have before you get the sale? And so it could be, hey, you sent an email, they came to the show, they looked at your website, right? Like, but if you can find those, whatever that journey is that got them to come in, and then grow too. So it's like, yeah, the net new logos, how do you secure those? How many touch points does it take? What are the touch points that are the most impactful to bring in a net new client? And then also, how do you nurture that growth for existing clients as well? What type of events
And,
help?
and I think that's probably the tougher number to
The
calculate
partner.
is the nurture aspect of it,
Yeah,
which
I
is
agree.
what's the goodwill that you build up with your clients because they just like spending time with you. There's there is a valuable on yeah, there is a value on that, but I don't know that it's quantifiable, if I can use such a big word. But
You
all of these
can.
things play okay, good, thank you, appreciate it. But all of these things play together.
Yeah.
But if I zoom all the way back out to what we started with, it starts with what are you trying to accomplish? Where I've seen some folks, I've seen events struggle, kind of in previous lives is we want to do something to increase awareness. And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? There's got to be some outcome that you're shooting for. And maybe it's just more engagement, which is to get maybe getting people to come to more events is actually your metric because then you can do more things. And again, there's a sweet spot where you can only do so many events before people go, okay, enough. Um, but that kind of stuff, yeah, you got to know what you're shooting for. So
Well, there's a client relationship aspect to it, right? You
correct.
you spend some time getting to know someone over drinks or playing golf, and all of a sudden, the 2 days late on that project delivery is not too big of a deal later on.
You build up that human relationship. Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, we were. I didn't do this event, but my president flew down to one of our partners to do an event, they got ink on a non-cybersecurity thing, but something that day, and they were probably going to get ink in it anyway. But getting in the same room with these people, is tremendous. Again, just we're competing for people's time and attention in the end, and
Mhm.
anything we can do to get it without being obnoxious about it is absolutely critical. There's a kind of a sweet spot, getting people to give up their valuable time to you is worth its weight in gold, in my
Mhm.
opinion. So,
If you're an MSP, how do you get the skills or the techniques and tactics to be able to do stuff like this? And speaking specifically about a cybersecurity event, you might be the best cybersecurity practitioner in the world and have no public speaking ability, right? How do you figure out how to put on an event like that?
so start small. Obviously, if you're starting with events, starting with webinars is good because they tend to be lower cost impact and easier to control, less variables.
Mhm.
Um, I
Or
see a lot of,
maybe even smaller than that, like LinkedIn. Like maybe
yeah,
you
LinkedIn,
actually
yeah,
Yeah,
putting some
LinkedIn
post
Lives.
out.
yeah, absolutely, or just doing posts,
Yeah, doing
and things like
posts.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting because I see a lot of times folks in cybersecurity like, well, nobody wants to hear from me. Everybody knows this stuff, and I go, no, that's completely not true. And
Yeah.
imposter syndrome's a real thing. It still hits me from time to time where I'm like, what am I doing? What makes me an expert to talk about this? And if you're not careful, it can kind of cause you to freeze up. But it's a practice thing. I mean, Matt, one of the, you know, I aspire to develop the habit of running like you have. Um, and part of what I have to do
Same.
is I have to start once and know that I'm going to be terrible at it for a while, but stick with it and stick at it. The other thing I'll tell folks is leverage your partners. One of the things I love about ConnectWise is you guys put your money where your mouth is. You have a couple phenomenal cybersecurity speakers in Natalie and Jim, who ConnectWise makes those available to people. As do other folks in the industry. I've spoken, alongside everything from FBI agents to other industry folks and things like that. So, I've actually gotten to a point where, I can and do present on my own a lot, but I actually prefer to present with someone else because
You
I think it makes it
feed off of
more.
each other.
It
Yeah.
does. It also allows you to pause, and things like that. And it's
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it comes across more genuine. My favorite thing in the world to do is panel discussions. And I actually think if you're starting off, a panel discussion is not a bad thing because then you don't have to get obsessive compulsive about the content. You just have questions to ask, and if you get the right audience, it becomes an interactive session as opposed to a, kind of a projecting to people. And um, yeah, those are my favorite because I, much like this, I literally have no idea where they're going to go, and
We don't
that
either.
makes for that's fair. You guys were at least honest about it,
Yeah,
which I love.
we haven't thrown any hardballs at you
Absolutely, no,
yet.
bring it. You just have to try it, and it comes down to it, and look outside your four walls. Look to see who you can partner with. I help mentor people that are looking to do presentations because, obviously I've done a handful. Find something you're passionate about, and it just comes it just comes shining through. I consider myself so unbelievably lucky that I'm in a role that allows me to do something that I truly love, like to think I'm pretty good at, and hopefully makes an impact. I sometimes will get stories from people of, hey, you did this training, and we caught this issue because of that, and that's just
It makes all of your
I'll
work
I'll
all worth it.
I'll
No,
ride I'll ride
that's
that
got to
high for
feel good.
weeks.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's just because that's in the end, that's what it's all about. It was helping people. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Matt, I know that you usually ask the last question, but since Tim is the last official guest on this season of IT Nation Wise Up 2024,
Mhm.
you Mind if I ask the question?
Go right ahead.
Okay. All right. So Tim, the last question we ask every guest on this show is, what is a habit that you would start or stop that you'd recommend to the audience?
You're right. You did save a hard ball. I think the one that I would start is just get educated and stay educated. I think that the more you know about what's going on in the world, the more you can make things relatable for people. Like I struggle a little bit right now because I don't feel like I know AI well enough to be able to really advise people. So I'm making conscious and concerted efforts um, to increase my education on that. I think the more you can take information from different sources, I'm a huge social media junkie, LinkedIn, Twitter, because it'll always be Twitter to me. Finding out what's going on in the world, because then when you can share stuff with people, that's it. I think as far as what people should stop doing, stop doubting yourself. Stop the worry that don't kill something off without trying it. Don't think that your event's going to be terrible and no one's going to come without trying it. Again, I love seeing when people try something new for the first time and then it's even moderately successful, the excitement that comes across. And to me that's what it's all about. So you believe in yourself, believe that you have a message that will resonate with people. Don't make it about selling, make it about educating, and you'll be able to get people in a room all of the time. So
Oh, that was really inspirational, Tim.
okay.
It was really good.
It was
really
good.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for
My
this
pleasure. Thanks for
episode.
having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we hope that you have a great Thanksgiving.
Are you
And
kidding?
great
Any holiday
holiday.
that's based around turkey and football is is just phenomenal to me. So no, and as I've said to everybody I work with in ConnectWise, you all have done so much for me for my career and for New Charter and Cyber 74 that anytime we can help, anytime I can help, don't hesitate. It's I view partnership as a two-way street. I ask for a lot from ConnectWise, so I'm more than willing to help and to give and things like that. So
it's a good lesson, because Kevin Blake says the same exact thing, and it is a partnership. It is a two-way street. So
well, and I'll be honest with you, most MSPs don't look at it that way. And as I'm sure you've both experienced, they view partnership as what can you do for me? What can you give to me? And, I learned like 10 plus years ago when I started, doing more stuff with Continuum, that the more I offered to help people, the more cool stuff happened in my life. I ended up in a keynote, in IT Nation Secure a few years ago, and, sitting in 6 hours of rehearsals for my 5-minute session. But those 6 hours was spent with Jason McGee,
yeah.
who I ended up on a first name basis with, so, there's so many interesting things that come out of this stuff that, I'd love more MSPs to know and understand that, yeah, you got to hold people accountable for stuff, but make it a two-way street, and I think, I know Kevin, I know the Tech MD folks really well. So it's, we're kind of, a lot of us are kind of wired that same way. That's why some of us kind of all run in the same circles, because we view it in a similar lens. So,
well, thanks again for coming on the show, Tim. We really appreciate all the advice that you gave to our listeners. And hey, Matt, happy Thanksgiving to you, my friend. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Tim. Happy
You as well.
Thanksgiving if you're celebrating in the US.
When does this go live?
And this will go live at the end of December. So, okay. Yeah. So, hey, Happy New Year for anybody else that's listening live at this point. But remember that every day is a chance to learn something new. Make sure that you subscribe to this amazing show. And until next time, we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Vicki. Appreciate it.
Thanks.